First thing we want to look at is this manual that everybody says is useless. Okay? A lot of guys, when they review stuff on airsoft, the first thing they say is, oh, this manual is useless, or this manual's this, or the Chinese people can't speak my language. It's pretty sad that when you're an airsoft player, that the people who take their sweet time and spend money making these things for you, that you would be the type to diss them on their language. They are trying to speak this language, so give them a break, okay? This manual, albeit being a picture manual, is helpful. Some people say it's not helpful. We're going to use it because this is my first venture into the Western Arms Force engine. Okay, should be easy to do. I looked it over last night for a good long while, and I'm going to refer back to it as we build this gun. But any information you have is valuable information. No information, you're up the proverbial creek without a paddle. So, not useless, not garbage. If for anything, if it doesn't tell you how to put it together properly, at least you have a visual of what the part looks like in correlation as to where it's supposed to go. So we're going to use this manual. We're going to pull out our receiver body, get it set up because lower receiver build, that's what we're going to be dealing with. And then we're going to go for another bag, which, in my opinion, at this point, contains 90% of the stuff that you're going to need for the lower receiver build. Okay? The thing about G&P that's really awesome, another thing that's really awesome about them is that they put all this stuff in individual bags, so you know what goes with what. If this were an AGM challenge kit, it would probably be one big brown garbage bag just full of springs and screws with no idea of where things go. It's like, it's on you, have a good one. So at least they do this for you. So this is our gas tube. We're obviously not going to need that until we get to the main part of the upper. We'll set it aside. The charging handle, we're not going to need this until we get to the final assembly and installation of the bolt into the upper receiver. We're not going to need that. This is your forward assist. We will be needing that. Now this is what I'm talking about. This is a bag inside of a bag. So you're not going to have this big bag full of springs and parts, okay? Just to say this is for your lower receiver, which would be helpful, but they don't do that. They put it in a small one, so you know this is your forward assist. You know this spring goes with it, this little spring goes with it, and these two little tiny pins go with it. Set that to the side. This is your plastic buffer. As I said earlier, we will be building this with the red plastic buffer because this is what 90% of y'all will be using in your gun in the total build. It's very easy to switch out with the real steel. I do have the Bushmaster in my pocket and ready to put in there, but as I said before, my distributor is out of stock on these steel internals, and I do not trust the heavier buffer against that aluminum buffer lock. So we'll set that to the side because that doesn't go in until the final stages. Here's your selector switch with its spring and its detent in the bag. Here's your mag catch with its pin and its spring in the bag. This is your bolt stop. All the springs, all the detents are in the bag. So you know every part goes with this piece and you don't have to guess. This is your enhanced trigger guard. This is a nice touch for them to give you on this. This is a $25 to $30 part right here. And even then, if you get it in the Magpul branding, it's going to cost you a little bit more. And it's made of plastic, but this one, metal. Here's your hammer spring, your pins, and all of your bushings and bearings all in one. This is your flip up front sight, and I believe that this thing is completely assembled already. I don't know if I'm going to be using this one or if I'm going to be using the UTG A2 chop front. Okay, yeah, this one's assembled for you. You just simply flip it up. If I can figure out where that, there we go. This is kind of reminiscent to a scar for me. I don't really dig it, but it's a single aperture, meaning that on the A2 front, the rear sight post, you have the peep sights that flip up and down to give you long range and short range. We'll set that aside. This is a washer set and a lock washer set. We'll figure out where those go in just a little bit. I think this is part of your barrel assembly. Here's your dust cover set. Okay, all in one bag. And here is part of your safety. This is the aluminum part that we were speaking about. This is your buffer retainer block, or buffer lock, which some people call it. Here's your trigger setup, trigger spring, and a full metal black flash hider. Okay, get that out of there and take a look at it. That was a nice thunk, wasn't it? Okay, now I believe this is 14 millimeter counterclockwise. We'll find out once we get it attached to the barrel. This is very nice. This is about a $30 part right here, maybe more, because that's steel. Okay. Now let's see here. We're going to take our screwdriver. Knock our pins out. I want to do this back here so I don't mess up this table. Alright, there it went. Shoo! That sucker's in there, man. Alright, now we'll separate your top and your bottom receiver. Man, that sucker's in there tight. Another thing that's really cool about this upper and the lower is that they mate together so tightly that it's just unreal in a sear. So we'll find our trigger. It's a hammer. Okay, we got our pins there. Set that baggie aside. And for aluminum, I'm starting to see where they're saying about it being hardened aluminum, because it feels almost like steel. It's heavy. Okay, now here we go. This spring here goes underneath there and then clips over the side. Okay, so basically the spring needs to be up underneath there, okay? Now I've got that little spring sideways in that track, and then we put the sear in and then drop it down. Alright, here we go. We're going to drop the hammer in there, the trigger in there first, and then put the sear in. Okay. And the notch on that sear fits in there a certain way. Okay guys, sorry about the break there. What we figured out here, and I'm going to explain it to you without removing it because it was a pain in the butt to get in. We're going to set this trigger guard stuff off to the side. Alright, you'll notice right here there's a pin. Okay? Now, the sear, we're going to look down in there. You notice how I did the trigger spring and set the sear down. I was absolutely correct. Okay, now there is a small part. Let's go back here. And as you'll notice, it's not in the manual. It goes right in the front of that piece there. That little square. Okay, let me get my little pointer, my redneck pointer. That little right there. Okay, what it is, it's a little teeny tiny Allen screw. And you need to screw that all the way into the front. And what that does is it keeps the tip of that sear from dropping down in behind the hammer block. Okay, so you basically put that in first, all the way in, and then put it together like I showed you, drop it down inside, mash it down in there as tight as you can, and put the pin in from that side. Tap it in, you're good to go. Alright, now, I'm going to go ahead a step, and we're going to install the trigger guard since the trigger's already there. Notice that trigger works flawlessly. Also down in here you want to make sure that that trigger setup, I don't know how good you can see it now, there we go. That trigger setup needs to be square and flush on both sides and not cockeyed. Okay? Now let's go ahead and put this trigger guard in, and I was misspeaking earlier, this one is polymer also. So you put the fat end towards the back and the front end towards the front inside there, and then you'll tap the roll pin in there. Okay, let's see, let's get it to where it's lined up. Let's see if I'm doing it from the wrong side. Yeah, I was. Okay, so you want to do it from the left side. Tap that roll pin in, make sure that it's all lined up good. They give you this little Allen screw, but there's no threads in there. So we're going to put that in on this side. And take our little miniature Allen wrench. Let's take this little stupid thing off the end here. Okay, that way we can use that end of it. Okay, so your roll pin goes in on the right hand side, and the set screw goes in on the right hand side, and it cuts the threads in as it goes through the trigger guard, which is polymer. Okay, that part's done. And here is our hammer bag. We'll open this bad boy up, and these are Ziploc bags too. And this one is just a matter of seeing what goes where and in what direction. So, okay, let me cut the film here real quick and figure this out. Okay guys, on your hammer, my kit came missing a lock ring. Okay, there is a lock washer, which you can see that I've inserted in that little groove. Okay, so I took the tips that hold my Allen wrenches and I cut that one off. So if you're missing one, you can just go get one that way. But this one's a perfect diameter, and I will just slide it down inside there. Well, it was the perfect diameter. Thank God it's springy. Okay, I can fix that though by simply reforming it a little bit. You can even use a really small jump ring to do that as well. I'm not sure how essential it is to have, but evidently it needs it. Okay, I'll fix that in just a second and cut the film. Let's talk about the hammer. You get two small bushings and they tap. They're made of like a vinyl polymer, and they tap inside that center hole. You see how they're sitting in there? They're the perfect width to where they touch inside the hammer, and they're flush on the outside, so you'll need to tap those in. Rubber mallet is a plus, even if you get a little tiny one, so go pick one up. Okay, and let me cut the film and get this little spring in here resized for this, and then we'll put the rest of the hammer together. Okay guys, as you can see, I got that little homemade lock washer in there. Now what we're going to do, set that lower receiver aside. We are going to install the hammer spring and the two bearings. Now this is going to be a pain in the butt because these bearings do not attach to these bearings. The only thing that holds them in place is the spring and the pin that goes in between them. They're simply there to give your spring something to grip to. Okay guys, about an hour later we get the hammer installed. Okay, now basically it's just like the drawing shows you. It's very simple but a pain in the butt. Alright, you see right here, you put your two bushings in like I showed you, then you hold the two bushings with the lock washers on the edge, install the spring, push it down into the body, and what's hard about it is just getting this pin to line up. Okay, I'm talking about this pin right here underneath the anchor. Okay, once you get it done, you can do it. Now, it took me a little bit, but what I did was I went from the side that you installed to, and I took a finishing nail, I pushed it through the pins and the hammers and the spring and lined everything up, and then backed it out very easily, and then installed the pin. And then when I got it through the first bushing, then I went on the other side and opened up the hammer in the other bushing and slid it through. It's very tedious, but it can be done. It's very easy. Don't let it scare you. Now, just to show you that I did it correctly, there we go, on the function check. Now the next step is going to be, looks like installation of the fire control selector, the detent, and the selector switch. So let's get into that. I'll get all the parts together, we'll look at it and go from there. Okay, now your fire control selector, this block here is your assembly. This is also going to serve as your fire control selector and your buffer lock. Okay, your buffer lock is this little piece here with a little spring. All these come in this package with this item, and then these items come in the same package as that one. And these little set screws and that big hex screw goes in there. And then your detent and your fire selector control switch and your fire selector spring come in another little tiny baggie. And you need both of those baggies to start that assembly. So I'm going to go over this real quick, and we'll come back and see if I can't do this one on camera. Okay, what I found out by test fitting is this little spring, you see it there? This is for your buffer lock. You set it down inside there. Okay. Then you take this piece and make sure that you put the 45-degree angle facing forward on the gun and push it in, compressing the spring, and it locks itself into the main body. This is what's going to hold your buffer lock. Okay. Then you take it and you slide it on down into place where your buffer lock is sitting like that. Take the supplied screw, insert it in that hole there. Take your Phillips head screwdriver. If I'm not missing a step here, I don't understand how the other one could be any other way. So we'll find out if that's an issue. We'll take it apart and redo it. But the thing of it is, we're not putting any undue pressure on any parts. If it don't fit, don't force it. Sit back and rethink the whole situation. Alright. Now, as you can see, that's in place, and your buffer lock, spring-loaded, is in place. Now, we'll be right back. Okay, guys, right here, this is part of your fire selector control. I know this is kind of small. See, there's a spring, and there's your little plastic detent, and there's a nipple on the end that this spring slides over and snaps into place. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to ride into your detent spot, and I know this is hard to see, but there's no other way to do it. Okay, right down. Let's see, right there is a hole. Okay, that detent, that spring goes into it, and then the other end of that plastic detent pushes into the fire selector on this side. See that hole right there? So this side goes into there, therefore giving you the snap of your fire selector. Okay? And every time it rolls around, it snaps into place on another detent, and there's 3 of them. Okay? Okay, guys, we got that detent and that spring in there for your selector switch, and it was very simple. All I had to do was get Ms. Juddite to loan me a pair of her tweezers so I could get my big fat fingers down in there, and I held it and I just dropped it right into the hole, and just a tad bit of it is hanging out. So therefore, I should be able to just come straight in here and start doing what I need to do and install the selector switch. Now, I've got some parts here that the manual doesn't show where they go. I'm going to hang on to them. It doesn't show them as being used in this step. So, God knows it might be somewhere else because of the simple fact that it may be for the Western Arms version. So, therefore, we may not need them. And if not, that's even better. And then again, they may be for some other part of the internal that I'm not on yet, because evidently 2 of the parts I needed for the one part were in 2 separate bags. So if that's the biggest catch we got, the better off we are. I'm going to go ahead and push this through and see how easy it is and explain it to you. I've already pre-fitted it, and it slips in very nicely. So hopefully, well, let's just go ahead and try it. That detent's already in there, as I said, and that spring should go. So you want to take it in where it's on semi and slide it right on in there. Okay, guys, we had one little snag, and I'll tell you what happened. I had to end up taking out the buffer lock because I couldn't get the selector switch to go in over the sear. So I went ahead and took that out and still put it in. I still couldn't get that to happen. So on this side, you can barely tell. You can see a little scratching on that side, which that will come out with patina. I'm not worried about that. I had to take my Dremel and my stone, and you got to be very, very careful. And at the top, just mill just a little bit out, as flush as possible. Popped right in. Now, like the scar, this weapon, and this is a good point to talk about it, this weapon, unless this hammer is cocked back, will not go into safe. Okay? It will not. As you can see right now, it's into safe. Do not force it to. Also, I would not charge the gun on safe. Okay? Because it'll break that system in there. So right there we go. We'll do a function check. It's on safe. Rotate it around to semi. Okay. Lock it back. Go into full auto. Notice how it clicks nicely? Boom, there you go. Function check works. Now the next thing we got to do is the bolt stop. So let me figure out the bolt stop and then I will come back and tell you how to do it.